Hello, my name is Charles Burnell. I wrote a letter on Inauguration Day after listening to President Biden's inauguration speech, and I mailed it. When I post this, it will have been about a week ago. Give him time to get it in the mail. Mr. President Joseph Biden, I write to you on this inauguration day distinctly aware of my anticipatory anxiety of what may come. Far-right extremism is rampant in my area, and people are not taking the pandemic seriously. People not taking the pandemic seriously is making me uncomfortable. However, I know I'm not alone. We are all in this together, and I have faith that you and your team have a plan to help. I hope it includes developing federally funded and run health centers in every state. This virus will likely continue to mutate such that people will continue to need to get periodically updated with the newest vaccines for a long time, similar to periodic flu vaccines. History has shown plagues and viruses typically last hundreds of years. We will not be able to eradicate it. We simply need to adapt. I believe science will help us with this challenge. However, scientists have been discussing how climate change has created an environment where superviruses can more likely thrive. They have urged that we as a species need to be paying attention. We have already seen several superviruses throughout the globe in the last decade. President Obama was right to have been paying attention to pandemic awareness. It was a disservice for Trump to dismantle that effort. I trust that you will be restoring and improving this particular system. The pandemic has highlighted a great intersection of the ways in which our national health care is deficient. You could meet the needs of the health of our nation from multiple angles. Addressing the need to vaccine the masses wide scale and the need for a national health care system could be addressed in this moment. What if you began by establishing federally run, staffed and managed health centers in each state where large doses of vaccines can be managed and distributed locally throughout the state as needed? Persons who do not have ready access to vaccinations from a regular doctor, whether for lack of funds, insurance, or otherwise, would be able to obtain vaccination services from one of these centers free of charge. These centers could be used for research, education, or community support, and perhaps could continue to operate beyond managing COVID to help fill in the healthcare gaps for the otherwise uninsured. They could serve as vaccination centers for other vaccines. There are so many possibilities and ways, including a measure of this nature, within your plan for our future that could be beneficial to our country. Please ponder this. When you first entered the race, I did not stand behind you. I recognized that you are an experienced man who would come prepared to do the job well enough. It seemed to me that you would be a great cleanup guy. I believed that you would be a good president to come in and fix all the things Trump messed up, perhaps even improve them a little, and basically do your best to return things back to the way they were in 2010. It would make just enough of a difference to appease enough of a majority to restore a feeling of harmony to the nation, and that would be it. I thought that the real problems that we have been demonstrating for, petitioning for, praying for would not be addressed. The really progressive actions and plans that paved the way for long-term changes to our nation, those would not happen. I expected them to fall short. Because truly healing our nation would require such incredible change that you, as a centrist, historically a moderate, that you would not be able to initiate or follow through with such a progressive agenda. Instead, I wanted a candidate that would be more robust in their passion for developing plans with long-term impacts. I wanted a president that I felt actually represented, actually shared my vision for the future. And you, sir, I did not see that. I saw someone who would be a good president, but that would primarily understand and represent the middle class, a quickly shrinking group of Americans that in reality does not at all accurately represent what most people have to survive with. I saw you to be a good president for representing the fairy tale that most people think of when they get that patriotic feeling. And it's not far off from what I believe. There are some key differences that I simply feel a more independent-leaning candidate is more likely to offer. When it came down to the final decision in November, I voted for you because, for one, Trump has been destroying our nation with his lies and circus since he entered the presidential race in 2014. And two, in the last 2 years of campaigning, the climate and needs of our nation have changed with such great veracity that my opinion of what needs to be top priority has changed. We really do need a good cleanup guy right now. Trump really messed things up for a lot of people in a lot of ways that never really made headlines. The growth and empowerment of the misogynist, racist, and fascist population within the midst of our nation is highly disturbing. Though it existed before, I am distinctly aware of its rapid growth in the last 5 years. Mr. President, I am thankful that you chose Kamala Harris to be our Vice President. So far, I have been impressed with the cabinet members that you have suggested. I listen to the news on NPR every day, and I do pay attention. I am pleased that you are taking immediate and poignant action for many issues at once. I understand that there is a lot of work to do to heal this nation, to create unity for which we, as a nation, have branded and promoted ourselves to the world. No. Yeah, that's right. You have shown a great deal of hope, and to be honest, your words today moved me to tears. I am glad that you are our president now, and I know that it takes more than one person to make big, lasting changes. I know that you love this country and God, and truly believe that through the right and noble actions, you can help to mend this country. And it takes more than faith and intention. I believe that you know that, and I have faith in you. I also have every intention of not giving up on finding a candidate that actually represents my voice, my thoughts, and ideas when it matters most. I wrote to President Obama, I believe this is part of my civic duty. I did not write to Trump. I cannot imagine it would have gotten me anything but put on a junk mail list, or worse. I offer you a perspective that is highly important and relevant in these times of civil unrest. I have not identified as a Democrat for the majority of my adult life. I was initially excited to become a registered voter when I turned 18 years old in 1992. I proudly registered Green Party with the hopes of a new tomorrow. Growing up in the San Francisco Bay Area in California, I was raised with the knowledge that global warming and climate change were an important subject matter that needed more attention. I learned early on the way in which we conduct our society, socially and economically, would not be sustainable in the long run with the potential challenges that the 21st century was most likely going to provide. I registered with the Green Party because I recognized that they too understood these future challenges and embraced the importance of acting proactively for the sustained success, health, and welfare of our nation. I was quickly educated about the realities of the mathematical game in which our electoral system does not provide for equal voices at the metaphorical table. I learned that the Green Party was not recognized in enough states for any presidential candidate in this party to ever win. Even in the rare and unlikely case that every state who recognized the Green Party elected a candidate of this party, they would still not gain enough electoral votes to win. This shocking disappointment jarred me. As a young adult voter, it threatened to disenfranchise my attention and dedication to this so-called great nation. I did stop registering Green Party for that reason. Instead, I have chosen independent or declined to state as applicable when updating my voter registration ever since then. Despite my disappointment in the system, as a patriot, I believe in my civic duty to participate and speak up when I see something as wrong or needing attention. I have attended protests, signed petitions, volunteered, and of course I vote. I have always been disappointed to see how so many very important topics take decades of conversation, demonstration, petitioning, and letters, publishing books on said topics, and so much more before representatives in our government will venture to even listen. In some cases, the history has shown instead our legislators directly oppose the needs and will of the people when it does not align with their personal vision for the nation or does not align with the financial vision of their benefactors and donors. I expect that you, as our president, are highly educated in the real history of our nation and the laws that have cumulatively built the society in which we live today. Although I am likely less educated than you, I know that history has promoted and rewarded classism prior to our very inception. When English colonists were brought here by investors, they were not considered or treated with dignity. Laborers were considered commodities. Women and people of color were merely chattel. Investors were here to reap the financial rewards of the new land and took consistent action to suppress the success of the lesser man. They disregarded the native inhabitants, treating them as savages. When the Constitution was written and refers to land-holding white men, it was on purpose. Our forefathers wanted classism to be a sustained part of society and envisioned it to be that way always. They fostered racism as a means to strengthen classism when the less wealthy began to develop community in ways that could potentially lead to dissent. The radical far right embrace that way of thinking as well. However subversive or overt their propaganda and actions may be, it is the mere principle that is the problem. The history of how our country has been built upon these ideas of maintaining classism is supported in its own way by not really teaching our children the whole and real true American history. Instead, what is provided in most American K-12 is a whitewashed version that does not embrace the challenges and traumas that persons of color have experienced and sacrificed to make us the nation we are today. I am hopeful that with Madam Vice President Kamala Harris by your side, the two of you will have the strength and compassion to address this particular issue. To bring unity to our nation as a whole, it is vitally important to not only help the middle class, but to go beyond that and begin to dismantle the classism that still exists within our nation's laws and legislation. Remember, the middle class only exists in a structure that supports classism. Without classism, the middle class lose their notoriety over the subservient classes. However, if our vision is one of unity, then why do we want to have subservient classes? Why do we want to spend time, resources, and energy trying to mend a system that allows for the existence of subservient classes in the first place? Aren't we all equal? Aren't we all important, equal, a blessing under God, united? The institutional racism that you claim to intend to address could also be addressed in the same action. Racism is a product of classism. One cannot exist without the other. Black lives matter. Indigenous lives matter. Human lives matter. Unity includes everyone. I suggest an audit of all existing legislation. We have bills that are old, that have toxic fascism, sexism, and racism embedded in often overlooked details on back pages that could be eradicated or amended to reflect the vision of the United Nation that we collectively yearn for. A project to thoroughly review and amend all laws within our nation that do not reflect equal treatment for all humans regardless of skin pigmentation, gender or familial status, socioeconomic status, or physical or mental ability would actually start the work of restructuring the American system of governance such that it no longer is a safe haven for institutional racism. We may not be able to eradicate COVID from nature, but we can eradicate systemic racism and classism from our system of government. As I have grown, experienced, and learned more, I have not given up my personal responsibility for civic duty and civic interaction. Registered as an independent, I have primarily voted for Democratic candidates. That does not mean that I feel any kind of allegiance to the Democratic Party. However, I respect and appreciate the members of the party who have been altruistic, dedicated, and consistent in their passion to press forward against the opposition of alternative facts, stonewalling, and the downright absurdity of the last 4 years. I am hopeful that you and Madam Harris will make a big difference quickly. I am not so delusional as to believe that you can fix everything. One thing that will be vital to your success in creating this unity is to pull back in the fringes of all the independent voters who are educated enough to not buy into the alternative facts. You may not be able to change the minds of people who have been radicalized and steeped in whatever versions of fascist, misogynist, or racist ideology that they subscribe to. However, there are a huge number of people who have felt disenfranchised, forgotten, or swept under the rug for a very long time. As a true democratic union, it is imperative that we stop focusing on bipartisanship and recognize multipartisanship is what is needed for everyone to feel heard and included in the conversation. We need reforms that will ensure a level playing field so that independent voices can be heard side by side with Democratic and Republican voices. We are not the minority, but our parties are. I am not suggesting that independent candidates or far-left candidates or any other minority party has some magic answer. However, I, like so many others, want to see that our voices are being heard, our ideas are being considered. There are great challenges ahead of us as a nation, as people, as communities. When we come together as neighbors, we all have a voice at the table. When we try to amplify that voice through our legislators, our voices are muted, because we are forced to choose a candidate in either the Democratic or Republican Party, and accept that our ideas will never be considered until someone from one of those two parties comes up with it. This is a problem. This does not promote unity. If you can find a way to embrace and promote the idea and manifestation of a United States government that truly represents the diverse population of our great nation by including independents, libertarians, and Green Party candidates, then you will have created a unity like no other in our history. No one group has the one right answer, but together we can tackle our challenges. With differing views and perspectives, we can address our challenges in a more holistic approach that embraces and supports all within our nation. While this particular strategy does not appeal to the far-right, hate-driven groups, I truly believe they are the minority in this country. If you can visibly, verbally, intentionally embrace and promote governing in a manner that includes multipartisanship rather than our historical bipartisanship, then you will have succeeded in bringing together the most vastly and accurately representative form of governance that our nation has experienced thus far. It is exactly what so many of us have been praying for decades. Will you represent us too? Please take these ideas into consideration when you are looking forward towards progressive reform plans throughout these next 4 years. Thank you for taking the time to listen and hear my voice. Most respectfully.